Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Velvet Bite here on my humble YouTube channel, which is also streaming on Rumble, Twitch, and we are on Substack, and of course, we are going live on the Patreon site for everybody. Apologies that we didn't have a show on Sunday, but today we are making up for it. We're doing the stream. As you can see, we're talking about Edgar Cayce. And we'll get into who Edgar is and how he started out, kind of build up there. But a big focus is going to be on, of course, what Edgar Cayce predicted for us in the future, his future which be our now. I mean, according to everybody, everything's in the now. There's no such thing as time, but hey, let's go with the linear time for the time being. We're going to discuss what it is that he really was talking about and what he foresaw in these times. And maybe even perhaps that, where he was in his times, because he predicted a lot of this in the 30s. Maybe something there was influencing his insights and his channeling. We'll get into that. First, let's see who's in the chat. Jonathan, you feeling better? Yeah, you know what? I wasn't sick with a flu. I didn't sleep all night at all. And if I don't sleep, I'm like get exhaustion. And I just was like, I didn't have everything lined up for the show. And I was just so exhausted. It just wasn't going to happen. I had massive insomnia. It was just a bad night. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to say my name, let alone talk about Edgar Cayce for the entire show. Pyramid is in. Howdy, incognito. So a few more of you coming in. Be sure to say hi and give the show a thumbs up. Share it out. Of course, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'd appreciate that. We're getting close to be able to monetize, guys. Let me check this out. I'm going to let you know how the schedule's going to go as well. I can go check this out before we get into it. Let's see. Let's go into Earn. How many more hours? It's about hours. You need so many hours. It used to be 1,000. Now it's 3,000. So we need about 700 more watch hours. So share it out. Tell people to put it in the background, whatever. So we're getting closer. Probably in the next month or so. Maybe for the New Year's, it'll be monetized. So that'll be nice. Now, Dorothy in the house from Calgary. Hi, how are you? Before we get into everything, I haven't booked any more guests for the rest of the year. I'm going to be booking people for 2026 to come on. This show, Sunday and Wednesday shows, kind of becoming conspiracy and more spiritual. So I'm going to be getting into that energy stuff more, moving energy and healing energy. And, just that sort of Aquarius and all the energy. I don't want to really go too deep into conspiracy and get everyone paranoid, but I do want to focus on energy and the spiritual part. And we're going to keep the vampire show going, of course. So this Thursday, we're going to be talking about some Appalachian vampire and a news story on Romania and the Carpathians. It's going to be interesting. On the 14th, that's Hanukkah, we're going to have a show. I think maybe I'll do some kind of homesteading or talk about diet, nutrition, and spirituality. We're going to not be doing a show this coming Wednesday on the 17th. I am busy. I'm going to be painting the 15th, 16th, and 17th, finishing my kitchen off. And then I'm going to see the Nutcracker Ballet on Wednesday night, so I can't do a show, but we are going to do a show on the 18th. So we're going to do a show on the 14th, the 18th, and then on the Sunday for the winter solstice, we are going to be doing a show on the winter solstice, and then we're going to cap it up for Christmas. My husband has some vacation time, so we're going to be off for the Christmas right up until into January, and then I'll try to book some guests and get some new stuff there. So tomorrow's show, vampires. Sunday show, maybe some food and spirituality. And then we're going to have another show on the 18th. And then We're going to have a winter solstice show and celebrate Christmas on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Yule. Maybe I'll bring a Yule log. Guys, I eat kind of carnivore and it's really helped me because I was getting chonky with perimenopause. So I might talk about that on the 14th. But I won't be doing any of the treats. I'm making some carnivore keto almond. What's that stuff called? It's like a chocolate covered almond paste thing. And I'm going to be making some carnivore cheesecake for Christmas. So I'm sticking to it. It's one of the very few things that has helped me through this time. When I was it was literally like I could look at something and gain weight. It wasn't like when I was in my 30s and early 40s. It's like, no, we're not being so kind to you anymore. So that's the schedule. That's what we do. And we're going to draw a tarot card today at the end of the show too. So stick around to see how the show's going because we didn't have the Sunday show. So I owe you guys that. Have you guys seen the stuff? I don't like to be too political, but I was just watching Candace and then I was watching Erica Kirk. Marzipan bar, she got it. Yeah, I'm going to be making carnivore marzipan. I got it. Keto marzipan. Let's be honest, it's going to be more keto than carnivore. Almonds aren't really carnivore, but you know what I mean. Anyways, I guess Erica Kirk's coming out on the battlefield and she is talking, because people are making up this thing that her husband's not buried anywhere yet. And I don't know if that's true or not. It seems a little elaborate, but she's coming out saying, everybody's peering into my life. I could just some privacy right here, at least something. And it's kind of crazy because Erica has been front and center out on the stage for attention, doing radio shows and a book tour. And she even did a video when her husband first died of him over the body in the coffin, kissing his hand. And people were really shocked by that. I was shocked by that. I was totally shocked by that. I was like, what? What are you doing? Like I would never do that. I would keep that stuff private. And so she's done all this public stuff. And now suddenly she's like, you guys owe us some privacy and you don't attack. She's saying that TPUSA is now her family. And when you mess with her family, she's coming after you. And this is why you can't have women as CEOs, in my opinion. And Candace said this. I agree. TPUSA is a corporation. It's a fraudulent one at that. And I can totally see them rolling all this stuff out. Right from the time he died, they didn't waste any time. They had a stadium. They were selling merch of the t-shirt he died in. They made $100 million from that. They just had a $10,000 a plate dinner extravaganza for donors at Mar-a-Lago and made over $40 million there. They just made $140 million for TPUSA. That's like more than their budgets every year that they've ever made all year long. She's on. Now they've released a book, apparently, that Charlie wrote. They have all this stuff that they've released. And you know what it feels like? It feels like COVID all over again, PSYOP, but it's assassination. And it really feels like this stuff was all pre-planned to roll out after Charlie Kirk's assassination to bank on it. And this is what they do. I actually heard Nancy Pelosi mentioned this one time when they pull off the basically the not the crime but the psyop, and then they market it and put it on the news and roll out the products to make money from it. So they use the psyop to trick people so they can get away with crimes, and then they roll all this stuff out. It is just horrendous, and a lot of people see through it, and then you get all these bots and Israeli bots all over YouTube that are totally like, you can see them. You can see that they're all putting out the same post, one after the other. It is insane. Project Mockingbird, MK Ultra, whatever it is, it's crazy. And suddenly now, because people are asking questions because their stories don't line up, she's demanding privacy. And I'm like, well, you know what? You can't be the CEO of a company and then put your whole life on the stage to manipulate and emotionally manipulate people and then get mad and demand privacy when people start asking questions. That's a no-go. Maybe she should step aside as CEO and then go live quietly. And then people will stop asking her questions. She's the CEO of the company. People are allowed to ask questions of sketchy people with criminal records that look like they're laundering money people are allowed to look into your finances of your company, you don't get to cry that you're a widow to divert people from looking into crime. And that's my take on what's going on right now. You should check it out. It's just a crazy scene. Absolutely crazy scene. And maybe Edgar Cayce, maybe this is craziness is a part of what Edgar Cayce was seeing. I don't know. Hello, Kirby. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to see you in the room. Tomorrow's on Vampire, Kirby. I know. I think you really like the vampire show. We're doing vampires tomorrow. Appalachian vampire. And we got a new story from Romania that we're going to talk about. It'll probably be a short show, but we're going to do it anyways. So, who is Edgar Cayce, you might ask? And why is he so important? Like, why are we talking about him? There's a lot of strange things, to talk about Edgar Cayce. And he was basically born in 1877. It's like 100 years before I was born. He died in 1945. He was born in Christian County in the state of Kentucky. And he was raised, ironically, in a church called the Disciples of Christ. It was like I think you see this a lot. It's like a church that's trying to restore the primitive practices of Christianity. I mean, you're seeing this a lot today, but I actually, evangelists are like psycho. They're like, I'm pretty sure they're summoning demons, and they're not a real church here in America. I think there's something crazy going on there. Anyways, it was the church that he was a part of eventually became a movement called the American Restoration Movement, and he was into what we would be called medical clairvoyance. It was a big part of his life, and he actually started life off, I think, as a salesman. He was big into sales, and he lost his voice, and he visited this and knew this hypnotist called A.C. Lane. I think he was an osteopath and electromagnetical doctor. And apparently this guy, through hypnotism, helped restore his voice. And that's when and because he had lost his voice, he had to quit his job as a salesman, and he got into photography. And it's kind of funny how things like this happen in our life. Like, you can see as damning, but it kind of pushes you into another avenue and shows you a different way, or maybe puts you on track of things that you're supposed to be doing. Like, when you don't do the things you're supposed to be doing, the universe has a way of going, hey, we're gonna take away your voice. We're gonna give you this. You're gonna be like this. We're gonna make this illness happen because you're not doing what you're meant to do. So that loss of his voice, that's total trauma, got him into a different career and got him into looking at this sort of osteopath kind of doctor therapist that through hypnotherapy helped restore his voice. It's really interesting stuff. And I firmly believe that happens to a lot of us. And so he was influenced by a bunch of different elements. Of obviously his base is that church, Disciples of Christ. He was influenced by mesmerism, Phineas Parker's Quimby's, the New Thought movement. He also became one of his patients, like I said, with the voice. He was also influenced by a man named Wesley Harrington Ketchum, a homeopath, who worked with Cayce from 1910 to 1912. And like I said, he worked in photography. Photography is interesting. I wonder if he did spiritual photography. I actually have a clip of him, one of the few voice clips of him actually in trance that I'm going to play in a little bit, and then we're going to go on to some of the things. He had some periods, so he's actually considered an American psychic, one of the originals. He believed in this idea of like he would have believed in Aquarius and that transition, and he actually called it a new world order. that was going to happen and come about, which I find really interesting. Because they use the word New World Order. It's like um it's almost like they hijack these spiritual things and use it for their own. But he actually used the term that it was kind of like a new world order that was going to come about at the turn of kind of what would be the age of Aquarius. And so, very interesting. He had some different periods of life. I'll just quickly outline them, and then we're going to get into listening to him. He did it. He was called the sleeping psychic, I think. So he did these things while he was asleep. And from what I can tell, he kind of went into this idea that it was a higher self, a higher power that he was channeling, and he was having access. He was one of the first people that started talking about, in America anyways, the Akashic records. So he never considered himself really some kind of woo-woo Satanist or spiritualist. He always considered himself Christian, though. So that's very interesting. And he has that in common with Crowley, that one thing that they had these deeply religious childhoods and background, but both obviously did very different things with this. I think Crowley might have had a little more trauma with his father passing, and he might have had a harsher religious upbringing, but I'm not too sure about that. So um, he had what was called his Selma period from 1912 to 1923. He was an officer in a Sunday school organization at the time. Local re- papers reported his voice had returned after 3 months of silence. And so on February 8th, 1917, an event in New York was held, supposedly receiving a telepathic message from Cayce, who was in Alabama. In 1920, Cayce's claims were published along with the suggestion that he would soon host Arthur Conan Doyle, who was actually another one. He's the author of Sherlock Holmes, but he was very much into spiritualism and channeling and seances. Cayce attracted a lot of entrepreneurs. They kind of wanted information. You can see this thing here happening where people really are going to these psychics because they want information that's not easily accessed. And you see this in the CIA and the MK Ultra. They're testing this stuff. Maybe even Russia. My husband says the sleeping prophet. I said the sleeping psychic, but yeah, the prophet. Prophet's a good word. It's the better one, anyways. Thank you for that. From 20 to 22, he participated in attempts to use psychic powers to drill oil wells in San Saba, Texas. So there's these guys trying to say, hey, let's find some oil. Let's get us some money, right? In September 2023, he hired Gladys Davis, who would be his secretary for the next 2 decades. And she would transcribe his readings into shorthand. I don't even know. I guess he had a Cayce Institute for Psychic Research. He had an Ohio period. A wealthy printer and student of metaphysics persuaded Cayce to give readings on philosophical subjects in 23. Keep going on. He had a Blumenthal as a patron. That was who's a Blumenthal? You know that name. We know that name. The Association of National Investigations was incorporated in Virginia in 1927. Blumenthal was the president. Morton Blumenthal, who worked at the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, he's in with some heavy-duty people. Remember, these people at the top believe in this stuff. Yeah. He was getting him to participate in psychic research. Mosley Brown, head of the psychology department, became convinced of readings and joined the association. So we're not talking some guy who's just sitting there, in his parlor with some locals. He's getting in with big people with oil, with the stock exchange because people are writing about him in the newspaper. During the Depression is when he turned his attention to spiritual readings. And in 1931, his friends and family asked how they could become psychic. Out of this apparent simple question came an 11-hour discourse, which led to the creation of study groups. In his altered state, Cayce relayed to the groups that the purpose of his life is not to become psychic, but become a more spiritually aware and loving person. And then in 1931, the ARE nonprofit was formed. That's the Association and Research for Enlightenment. You know how I feel about nonprofits now. I think they're infiltrated and they're not very good. So he gave his house back to Blumenthal. So, I mean, he's linked to all these people. In 1931, they're saying he promoted quack medicine in the form of antomidine or nascent iodine. I don't know. In this clip we're going to listen, he's actually giving instructions on how to make some kind of tincture. And we're going to find out some more about him, about some of his prophecies, and what it was exactly that he was saying and where was he getting it from. Let's just 1 second here. Yeah. So he was describing the Age of Aquarius as a time of profound spiritual, social, and political transformation. Called it the New World Order, like I told you guys, where humanity would seek greater unity, truth, and spiritual awakening, moving beyond materialism into an era of consciousness where we'd understand our connection to divine. With changes affecting nations like Russia and America fulfilling destinies, all tied to massive global shifts and the rise of a new understanding after the materialistic age of Pisces. He saw this era bringing in a new consciousness, but also challenges with predictions of major global events like the fall of communism and new paths for spiritual growth. He talked about consciousness and technology, a time of reckoning and revelation, the New World Order, a global unity, and a spiritual awakening. So there you go. Jonaside says from the audience, supposedly he only got one medical reading wrong, getting the person's twin. Well, that's interesting. Let's check out his voice. We're going to see what he sound like, and then we're going to actually kind of get into that. Is the New World Order here? Or have these, remember, he's serving some pretty wealthy people. And so maybe they have taken what he said and hijacked this. Because the New World Order that I'm seeing them propose does not sound like the New World Order that Cayce was probably talking about. Because I don't see no love in their hearts. You may disagree with me, but anyways, here we go. Check out, this is what he sounded like.
Rub alcohol, add 2 ounces of witch hazel, 2 ounces of Russian white oil, 1 ounce of tincture of benzoin, 1/4 ounce of oil of sassafras, 1/4 ounce of pure olive oil. Shake these together each time before. Small to be massaged into the posture of the body as indicated from the 6th, 7th dorsal to the 1st and 2nd cervical, and in that direction, not from the cervical.
I want to remind you, this is him in trance. That's getting this information from some kind of higher self, higher guardian that is apparently like the Akashic records, which these are like the collection of all connected consciousness.
Area, fourth, the dorsal, but from the 6th and 7th dorsal toward the cervical, just what the body will absorb. See? We would also, after such manipulation, then massage.
Maybe I should try this. I wonder what he was prescribing this for, because this is obviously some information he's gathering for someone, some kind of prescription for something that you have to massage it into their back in these certain areas.
And make after the fourth or fifth treatment of this compound, use those as corrective measures in the alignment around the cerebrospinal cord, not moving all at once in the area indicated where these are.
Okay. So I'm going to know if you guys want to try that out, I'll pop the link to that. It's a little slow. It's a little hard to hear. I'll pop that into the live chat here in a second. But that is what Edgar Cayce sounds like. It just gives you a sense of who we're dealing with here. Now, we're going to transform into that. He was very holistic. Obviously, he believed in healing medicines, a lot of magnetism, and it's a lot of stuff people call a fraud today. And there are people out there still investigating this information about healing, natural healing, herbal stuff. Look how many. We did a show one time years ago with my friend who's no longer with us, Letitia, and we talked to it because she was literally trained in essential oils. Like that was what she had her certificates and degrees in. And we were criticizing the industry that we have, the multi-level marketing on essential oils, and how everybody thinks this stuff is hokey and you can just rub these oils and ingest them. And we are actually talking about how dangerous they were and how you had to have a lot of knowledge on how to use these oils, use these herbs, and that they had serious effects and they're medicinal. And of course, there's this idea that these big kings and these big wigs really essentially hijacked a lot of this and turned it into medicine that they could market. And when, now we have big pharma, but it started out as a lot of homeopathic and holistic, medicine women, wise men, people using herbs or testing certain oils, energy, magnetics. You've got the Rife machine. So, and really he didn't want to be psychic. He just wanted a spiritual connection. So I find that, very interesting. Now, before we get into the end of the world, let's go over to this video here because he's gonna talk about something. They're gonna share some of his beliefs about death and the afterlife. And this is essentially mistakes that trap the soul after death. So Edgar Cayce, like many people today, even David Icke, believed that your soul could get trapped here, like a ghost, or some people believe that they cycle us back here and trap us here for energy or loosh or whatever. But he talks about this, and this video kind of covers some mistakes that he believed that could happen.
Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, revealed that death isn't an end. It's a mirror, a reflection of the soul's deepest attachments, fears, and unfinished business. So, what are the 5 mistakes that can trap you in darkness after you die? Stick around, because this might just change everything you thought you knew about life, death, and the journey beyond. First up, attachment to the physical world. Cayce taught that many souls, even after leaving the body, can't let go. Homes, possessions, loved ones. They cling to them, not out of love, but out of dependency.
So that's something like we all have to deal with now. And you got to be careful with that one because the rich will always trick you and tell you to live poor while they hoard everything and they're really attached to all the stuff. but it is this thing about being attached to dysfunctional relationships, um, old roles that are dying and not be able to transfer and move on, being attached to pain. Pain's a huge one. People are attached to all the pain and all the trauma, and they can't let go of their anger and their disappointment in people. Well, same things I think that can, if you don't deal with those in life, here they are in death. So totally agree with that one. Makes a lot of sense.
It's like being stuck in a fog, unable to move forward because you're still trying to hold on to something you can't take with you. The key to freedom: surrender. Nothing in this world truly belongs to you except the growth of your soul. If you can't release the material, you'll wander, lost in your attachments. Next is resentment, anger, jealousy, bitterness. They're chains that bind the soul. Cayce describes spirits trapped in a loop of their own hatred, unable to move forward. Forgiveness isn't just a moral choice, it's a spiritual law. Every act of forgiveness
Makes sense. Makes sense. The forgiveness part. Um, I don't think forgiveness means you have to hang out with those people, have the same relationship, or talk to them. I think that's part of attachment too, just letting go. Like, okay, whatever. You go your way, I go mine. Good luck.
raises your vibration. Every act of hate lowers it. To forgive isn't a gift for the person who wronged you, it's a lifeline for your own soul. Then there's fear of God. Too many souls, Cayce said, remain stuck in shadows, believing they're condemned. They fear divine punishment, forgetting that God is love.
That's the big thing, and that's my issue with all of the manipulation that they do in our society, including the evangelicals and the Catholic Church, that whole dynamic of good and bad, and the whole dynamic they created of original sin, that's created, that you're going to go to hell. So that literally, what if you put that in people's mind? I think when you die, a lot of times you have to deal with yourself and things that you believe. And if that's what you believe and you're not separating from your body, you could, be afraid. You're like, oh, I did some things, and you could actually think that there's this vengeful God that's going to burn you in hell, and you could be afraid to go anywhere near it. It's that's all propaganda in these poor people's minds.
Not a judge. Guilt and self condemnation are far more dangerous than sin itself. Embrace divine love not as a distant force, but as the essence of who you are, and you'll find peace. The fourth mistake is forgetting your life's purpose. Many souls live without meaning, chasing comfort.
And honestly, in Crowley, that was what do what thou will is. You see, all these people are carrying this. They're carrying the do what thou will, but they phrase it in less dark and weird ways, and they have better and healthier behaviors than Aleister Crowley did. But he's like, what's that's with him? He got on a path, he lost his voice, he had to switch it and switch to something that he was supposed to do. So it's like, well, what is it that you're supposed to do? And I think for people, they're like, I don't know. How do I know? How do I find out? maybe I gotta find someone and bring them on. Like, how do you know? How do you find out? I don't know. I think you've got to have some experience, and with experience, things will come to you. But I could be wrong.
Instead of their calling. But when the body dies, they wake up to confusion. Why am I still here? If you don't fulfill the lessons you came to learn, you'll find yourself wandering aimlessly, trapped in the emptiness you created by not living with intention. And the fifth, most tragic mistake of all, the absence of love. Love is the very energy that sustains all creation.
I'm gonna pause it here. I have a friend. I bring her on the show years ago, and we talked about her NDE experience. She had a couple of them, and she's actually been on in major studies with Michael Persinger in the lab. She's been on, a lot of features and big podcasts. She's also talked about things. They have a big organization for near-death experiences, and they have conventions and stuff. She's talked on a lot of those, so she's been in some big studies for psychic stuff that happened to her after she had these near-death experiences. And one of the questions I asked her was about, what was the whole point of being here? Like, what is it that we're supposed to experience? Like, and she was adamant that we're supposed to experience love. Like, that was one of the biggest messages. There was other stuff, but love was a huge one. And sometimes in loss, you do get to know what you really loved. Unfortunately, it's a painful way, but it does happen. So love under will. Love is the law. Love under will.
Without it, your soul remains in darkness, surrounded by the coldness you've carried through life. It's not about grand gestures. It's the smallest acts of love, compassion, and kindness that create light, both for you and for those around you. So, what do you need to release today to free your soul? The choices you make now, how you forgive, how you love, how you live, shape the very world you'll awaken to after death.
All right. Here's me giving you your moral lesson. So that's a positive thing. I kind of wanted to do that because we're going to get into the nitty-gritty with all of the stuff about Aleister Crowley, Edgar Cayce, where he's predicting some rather frightening stuff. And the idea is, in 1933, around there, he made a prediction about a future figure. He said, it won't be in our lifetime or our children's lifetime. So I thought maybe he was talking about Adolf Hitler, but no. And I'm not going to get into Adolf Hitler and conspiracies about that, and that I don't think he was the biggest villain. I won't get into that today. There's definitely bigger villains in that scene. But he's saying in future generations. And a lot of people think that he was talking about a certain president who has served 2 terms, not not back to back, but he has served as 45 and 47, the president of the United States, and they're running some crazy stuff today. And of course, we all know it's one big psychotic bird, in my opinion. And it's why I wanted to do the show and vibrate higher, I guess we could say, and not absorb that stuff. Did Edgar know Aleister Crowley or of him? Let me I'll Google that right now. We'll get into Trump, but did Edgar Cayce? That's a good question. We will type that up, Jonaside. So they say no, Edgar Cayce and Aleister Crowley never met in real life, but they were contemporaries, born just 2 years apart, exploring similar spiritual paths. He died in 45 and Crowley died in 47, which is interesting. Connecting with the divine potential, though from vastly different, almost opposite perspectives, with Cayce as a mystical healer and Crowley as a controversial occultist. Yeah. Crowley lived from 75 to 47, and Cayce lived from 77 to 1945. But I think a lot of that stuff was just in the zeitgeist, and everybody, applied their personality to it. That's why I say when he says, do what thou will, that's why you don't have to be Crowley, because people had different variations of what Crowley was doing, but the results and the intent were totally different. Excuse me, I just had a cough there. I muted it for a second. Yeah, what Crowley does doesn't matter. That's his deal. I think Edgar Cayce had probably a more practical approach to it because he was about spirituality and love, and he clearly had a healthy relationship and a marriage. He's just a more stable person, whereas Crowley had all this trauma. He was wealthy. He was in with wealthy people, but I think Edgar was just obviously a little bit more stable. And he did a lot of trance stuff, but there's just something really chaotic about the energy that Aleister Crowley bring, and he really PR'd himself as that. He did a lot of PR. He liked a lot of the wicked stuff that was written about him. So we're going to go into The conspiracy. Could he be? Could he be? He could be Trump. I thought I had a different. Yeah, we're gonna talk about natural disasters, and then I got a couple of videos we're gonna go into. I did this before talking about Trump, and I remember when the elections were coming ahead, and no one voted yet. It was 2024, and I had this evangelical friend from Kentucky, ironically, and I posited to her. I said, "Well, what if Trump?" Because she believes in the Antichrist stuff, right? So I kind of teased her, like, "Well, what if it's Trump? What if it's Netanyahu?" And she just lost it. She thinks it's no, no. She just couldn't even accept that as a concept. I'm like, I don't know. Guy looked like he's carrying out some crazy stuff. Anyways, let's watch this prediction on natural disasters, because this stuff is what plays into possibly our time as we get closer to Aquarius, and this idea of what's going to happen to America, like natural disasters, like crazy stuff. And then we'll get into the Donald Trump figure and what he represents, because he kind of lists it, the way he talks about it is like an antichrist figure. It's really interesting if you believe in that. Here we go. Edgar Cayce's true prophecy for America is not what you think. Uh, it says the time is close at hand when there will be a shifting of the poles. There will be upheavals, and in the Arctic, that will make for the eruption of volcanoes, and in the torrid areas, land will appear off the east coast of America. Some people think that's Atlantis. Some land will rise. That's the ancient land of what people called Atlantis. I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll go with it.
You just heard the words of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. A prophecy delivered from a state of deep trance nearly a century ago. Yet it describes our volatile world with a chilling, almost unbearable prescience. Welcome to the inaugural transmission from the Sleeping Prophet archives. We are not here to tread lightly. We are here to go directly into the heart of the storm, to the single most consequential, controversial, and urgent prophecy Edgar Cayce ever uttered for the nation he called home. The prophecy of a coming disaster for America. But let me be clear, this is not a simple prediction of a singular event. This is not a Hollywood disaster film. What Cayce saw was a process, a terrifying and
I like that they say it's a process, because everybody's expecting a Hollywood film and something major, but a lot of times these things just kind of show up and roll in, and because it's a process, you don't really realize you're like the lobster boiling in the pot. So that's fascinating.
transformative convergence of three distinct yet interwoven forces. First, a geophysical upheaval of a magnitude that defies modern comprehension, a remaking of the very continent itself. Second, a societal schism so deep it would tear the nation apart from within, a spiritual civil war fought not with muskets, but with ideologies and beliefs.
Okay, does that sound familiar? It's InfoWars. It's literally psychological warfare rather than just a physical guns kind of thing. And this is what we are going through. That's a huge part of this battle today, is psychological warfare, psyops. They spend billions of dollars controlling our minds every year. Billions.
And third, a planetary purification, a cosmic reset with a spiritual purpose.
Don't tell the elites that. I think the elites might be sniffing on this and want to kill us all. But honestly, I think the joke's on them. I think it should be, I think some of them are the ones who are causing the problems and needs to be purged, if you know what I'm saying. You catch my drift?
So profound, it would either elevate humanity to a new state of consciousness or cast it back into darkness. The most unnerving part of this vision It is not relegated to some distant, unknowable future. Cayce provided markers, signs, and spiritual conditions that must be met. And for those with eyes to see, those markers are appearing now, not as faint signals on the horizon, but as blazing signposts on the road we are all traveling. So take a deep breath. Settle in, for what you are about to uncover will
My voice, sorry, it was muted again. Um, Comment here in the audience. Jonacide says the Antichrist is Elon, maybe, but it makes sense if he was. If Trump was, the thing about Elon is he doesn't call the shots. He's got contracts. He's from, he is from a wealthy family. He'll deny it. He's got contracts and all that stuff, but he is obviously controlled. He feels like an actor. There's just sometimes he says he's doing all this stuff. He says he's doing all these projects, but there's just no way that Elon's doing everything he says that he's doing. Um, he buys a lot of companies, and I think he works for the government anyways. He's in with the FBI and the other tech bros, and then they turn it into whatever it is that they want. So the Antichrist is probably a system, and there's probably a guy who reveals it. The interesting thing is what he says happens after that Antichrist figure comes, what Cayce talks about. But we'll get into that. Let's go back into the rest of the video.
permanently alter your understanding of the past, your perception of the present, and your vision for the future of America. The first and most visceral dimension of Cayce's prophecy is the physical one. He described a sequence of geological events so profound they would render the maps of our time obsolete. This is not about a single earthquake or a lone volcano. It is a domino effect of planetary cleansing. He began with the West Coast, the fragile edge of the continent. Reading 3976-15 states with chilling finality, the greater portion of Japan must go into the sea. The upper portion of Europe will be changed as in the twinkling of an eye, and the west coast of America will be broken up. He was more specific in other readings. When asked about the safety of San Francisco, he replied that it, along with Los Angeles, would be among the first to be destroyed. This is not the big one that
Okay. You guys see this stuff? They're like trying to carry this stuff out right now. Like you see them attacking the West Coast, destroying the West Coast with the crazy laws. I hope it doesn't happen because my son lives on the West Coast still. But there is always been something that I feel like they're targeting the West Coast. Even with fires in Hawaii, I don't think these are accidents. I think these fires are like constructed. Let's just put it that way. Let's just put it that way.
Seismologists predict for the San Andreas Fault. What Cayce described was an order of magnitude greater, a tearing, a fracturing, a subsidence that would see vast populated areas reclaimed by the Pacific Ocean. But as the West falls, the center of the country would be ripped asunder. Cayce saw a future where the Great Lakes would empty not into the Atlantic, but southward, eventually draining into the Gulf of Mexico. This implies a cataclysmic seismic event along the New Madrid seismic zone, a massive fault line running through the American heartland. An earthquake here of sufficient magnitude could, as he saw, alter the course of the Mississippi River and create a vast inland sea, effectively splitting the continent in two. And while this destruction unfolds, a strange creation would occur on the eastern seaboard. Cayce saw that while many coastal areas, including New York City, would face utter devastation and disappearance, new land would simultaneously rise from the Atlantic. He spoke of land appearing off the coast near Virginia Beach and the Bahamas, remnants of a long-lost landmass. His words, "The coastline of New York, of Connecticut, and that portion will disappear, while the southern portions of Carolina, Georgia,
Okay, so I think we know where not to move. um, from the sounds of this, they could be look, the techno bros. They have so much power. Maybe they're all sniffing Edgar Cayce and they're trying to fashion things after this. But it sounds like no one can really escape this devastation if it happens. It's pretty to the point. Like, it's ripping the country apart, and there's not too many places where you'd be able to hide. I don't know. It's pretty damning. That is one of his terrifying predictions. So he brings about this chaos, but he also talks about this leader that arises, that really, I think most people would, they call him the Antichrist. Is this the one? I'm trying to see if this is the video. Yeah. Okay, so that's the downfall. That's not the one I wanted. There was one where he actually describes the rise of a leader. I think, is this one it? Yeah. Okay. Let's see if this is it.
Decades ago, hidden away in Virginia Beach. And now, everything he said is coming true. It's not just coincidence. It's a blueprint for the future.
Okay. I'm actually going to describe it to you because I don't think these videos get to the point fast enough. I'll get back to this video in a second, but I'm going to describe to you exactly what Cayce actually says. He doesn't list Donald Trump. He did a trance session in 1934. So during the reading, Cayce reportedly described a figure with a voice of thunder. China, who was a builder of walls. Well, kind of build a wall, not really. And would create division. He definitely created division, but then so did Obama. He is said to have predicted this individual would fall before his time. When asked about the timing of this event, Cayce replied, "It would happen not in your days, nor in your children's, but when the great towers have fallen and the nation fears its own shadow." What towers are those? This is interpretation gained attention following September 11th attacks, the great towers are falling, and Donald Trump's rise in politics. It's very important to notice that Cayce's predictions are often considered vague and open to various interpretations. Let's dive deeper. We're going to dive deeper into this and get a little bit more information on this. What's interesting is Cayce died in 1945. Donald Trump was born in 1946. And people think that he's the modern interpretation. He also says, they won't give me any more. There must be... I'm going to type Cayce's prediction of the Antichrist. Yeah, he says pole shift changes, climate chaos, spiritual reckoning. Readings framed evil or Antichrist energies not as one person, but as a collective spiritual forces or choices humanity makes. He spoke more about the spirit of the Antichrist and the rejection of spiritual truth rather than a literal figure. So he spoke about that. I'm not going to use the word Trump. Does he talk about the rise of a political figure? Yeah, he called him a builder of great walls. He also talked about towers. Build great walls of stone and word, have the voice of thunder, divide the people. Trump hasn't built walls. I mean, I guess you could consider the border, but he builds towers, golden towers. That stuff was talked about as well. Cayce's forecasts were couched in symbolic or general language, which allows varied interpretations. I'm trying to see because there was a lot more. This goodness, this one's like 33 minutes long. We'll watch a little bit of it. We're gonna get back into this one, and I'll share you my screen. We're gonna watch a little bit of this. It probably goes into a little bit more detail here. Make that bigger. Let's check it out.
Center of a national reckoning. And in those hidden lines lies a striking revelation, a prophecy that points to Donald Trump and the year 2026, a time when truth and power would collide in a way no one could ignore. Cayce never named him, but the description, the timing, the spiritual warning, they fit together like pieces of a puzzle we were never meant to overlook. Something monumental is approaching, something capable of reshaping the soul of a nation. Predictions came true. Take the 1929 stock market crash. Years before the collapse, Cayce spoke of a great disturbance in financial markets, beginning in New York and spreading across the nation. That language maps with chilling precision onto the sequence that produced the Great Depression, the shock that began in one place.
You know what's really interesting that I find is that Cayce knew some of these people that were in the stock market. So I'm wondering if he knew a lot of this stuff and put it out there because he knew, because a lot of this stuff is planned. Like that crash was not by accident. That was purposely done. Most of these crashes are done with their little build back better, and they want to make these different changes because if they can keep doing chaos, they can keep the people messed up. They don't want the people getting too much power. So it's interesting that he had been in with people like Blumenthal and he's making these predictions, just trying to add a clinical view to this here.
And cascaded into global economic catastrophe. The point is not to claim supernatural omniscience, but to note that Cayce identified the structural fault lines, greed, speculation, and brittle economic confidence that made...
The other thing I want to say and why it's easy, I think we have patterns. And this system does patterns. They literally, like I said, with the Charlie Kirk stuff and all the psyops, they literally put out templates and how to do things. So if you see the template, maybe you can tap in and predict certain economic falls and you can kind of, get a sense. I'm not saying he's not going to an Akashic record, but there's also this sense of history repeats itself because these rulers keep repeating their templates and the crazy stuff that they do. So that's another thing to consider.
Such a collapse possible, and he did so long before mainstream observers sounded the alarm.
All right, well, that's because he knew that Blumenthal guy, I'm telling you. Okay, so they get into Hitler here. Let's see what
Study in history books. Again, these were not vague platitudes, but a diagnosis of moral and geopolitical drivers that, unchecked, produced catastrophic results. And that turns out to be World War II. He also spoke of geological shifts, magnetic pole movement, and unusual weather patterns decades before climate science and plate tectonics matured into the frameworks we use today. When he pointed to danger along coastlines, places like the US, West Coast, or parts of Japan, he was describing zones vulnerable to seaborne forces.
Let's go up a bit. Okay, here we go.
United States. He described a nation drifting from its foundational moral compass, a people growing divided in homes, schools, churches, and government, a fracturing not merely of policy, but of shared meaning. That emphasis on values and conscience is the crucial connective tissue that links his earlier forecasts to the present. Cayce did not treat events in isolation. For him, economic collapse, world war, and natural disaster all reflected deeper spiritual maladies, pride, greed, fear that erode social cohesion long before catastrophe becomes visible.
And that is what they do. These power structures, these elites, they are eroding the social cohesion. And that's their practice. That's what they do. That's literally their psyops and putting all the stuff that makes America a depraved nation. I mean, that's what was happening in Germany before these wars. Total deprivation. And I'm not going to say who pushes it. I'm not going to say the word. I don't want to get in trouble.
Brings us to the present tension. The fact that Cayce's earlier predictions tracked real events does not, by itself, prove future prophecies are literal inevitabilities. a rise of a leader. Edgar Cayce's vision of America was never merely geopolitical. It was theological and moral, a nation entrusted with a distinctive mission whose continued flourishing depended on the spiritual health of its people. He warned that a decisive test would come, one that would force citizens to choose between selfishness and unity, fear and faith, materialism and love. For Cayce, prophecy carried an urgency of mercy rather than doom. The point of a warning was to prepare a people so that they might change course before destruction became inevitable. Cayce described a painful fissure forming inside American life, a split not reducible to policy or party, but rooted in competing values and spiritual confusion. He pictured households, congregations, and civic institutions estranged from one another, not primarily because of new laws or electoral outcomes, but because of a mutual failure of understanding and charity. Leaders, he warned, would not always speak to heal these breaches. Some would inflame them. The danger he highlighted was social.
And the pastors are inflaming them. The political leaders are swearing. They're doing all sorts of crazy stuff on Twitter and social media. He obviously didn't show the avenues in a direct way that it would happen, but we're seeing this. And this is the whole internet was created by the CIA. And all these tech brothers were hired by them to carry out a lot of this stuff. That's what people don't know. Maybe it's the CIA. It's all these intelligence agencies, I'm telling you. And for people who think evangelicals are going to save us,
And moral decay into that brittle.
We'll come back to this one later. We're gonna switch scenes. I'm just gonna show you this sort of world of excess. These evangelical churches who think they're really holy, this sort of world of excess that they're living in, and the corruption that's running through the churches, the money laundering, the greed, and these people think that they have the answer, and they're blindly trusting these leaders. You could call them antichrist, but they'll lose it if you dare suggest they don't have the truth. But this is the state of holiness in the churches today. I just upload this video. Check it out. This is a mega church. They are very profitable at this time of year. And this is the like pyrotechnics. Like this is not spiritual at all. You got to check out the stuff that they show. It gets worse. It gets like they have like literally scenes that they play on stage that look like WWF and the gates of hell. Okay, so that was like their little, those are supposed to be angels. It looks spooky, and the music, and it's so the lavish isn't the word, it's excess, it's greed, it's pyrotechnics, it's razzle dazzle. All that stuff is meant to take you away from your own spirituality and the light inside of you. And the people just stare blindly at this stuff, and then they call themselves spiritual, and the conveyors of world gods. They're just sneaky, like all the money that it takes to put on that stuff that could go to the people. You see how we're living in these excesses? It's like the Roman Empire from hell. Like it's crazy stuff, and I just do not trust it. Let's go back to that other Facebook scene, and we'll
climate. Cayce foresaw the emergence of a singularly influential figure. The leader that Cayce described functions as both a mirror and a test. A mirror because the extremes of public adoration and loathing reveal the inner condition of the populace, and a test because the choices people make in response determine whether the moment becomes a pathway to healing or a descent into further division. Crucially, Cayce framed this figure not as the root cause of America's troubles, but as a symptom of them. He insisted the leader would rise because a nation had already drifted from its moral bearings. The leader's ascent.
That is an important thing to look at, because we always want to blame the leader and take no part. But that leader this crazy leader can only come forward if we're already in that trouble. And people want this quick solution rather than to stop going gambling, to stop drinking, to stop whoring around, to stop sleeping with 500 people, to stop, gluttony, like all of it. Like we're responsible for all of it. Genocide says the world seems crazy. People want something to believe in to give them comfort. Yeah, and when I watch that video of the evangelical church, it does not give me comfort. I mean, how much money they spend on this. That looks like a distraction to keep people like bread in circuses. When I see that video, and all those evangelicals are like that, and it's not just Republicans. Look at Oprah Winfrey. She pushed that Joel Osteen, same crazy megachurch stuff. She pushed John of God. All these people that make these promises, like they're all false prophets, in my opinion. Edgar said that some of the greatest freedom in the world will come from Russia. How strange. Maybe that's what shifting poles does to you. I don't know. Anyways, we'll continue for a few seconds and we'll go on to a different one. But this is so, this idea. And Jung had the same idea about Hitler. He wouldn't say who's a goodie or a baddie because he knew that these figures arise when there's problems with society that are in part caused by the rulers and the leaders already breaking down society and making it immoral, and the people going for it. They need Odin. Well, that's why I'm running this show, and maybe only 5 or 6 of us show up, and that's okay. But we need to get out of this hating each other, because we're gonna vibrate in different ways. And I believe the people who are doing the crazy stuff, they're going to be caught up in this thinking they're being led to a holy path, and they're going to be really surprised when they realize that, if they ever realize that, they are literally participating in bread and circuses. Like, go have some quiet time in the woods or something, chill out. It's crazy time. Anyways, let's watch a little bit more of this.
Would expose, intensify, and make visible the spiritual tendencies already present in society. Many find the resemblance to Donald Trump striking, an outsider figure who shattered conventions, inspired.
I believe he was presented as an outsider. I don't believe he's an outsider. I think they're all in it together. They all know each other. These people are all actors. A lot of these politicians are actors. Donald Trump's an actor. Look, he had his own TV show. These guys are good. They know how to, that we watch so much TV that we actually, I think, unconsciously think it's real and respond to that better than reality. You don't like boring people. You want someone exciting. You want someone that's like huge. It's got big towers. It's got big golden towers, guys. And most of us fall for it at some point. Everybody fell for Trudeau in Canada because he wore colorful socks and could, I don't know, say some equations and apparently looked good and was going to legalize pot. I swear to God, that's what got him in. And he is a monster. He's just as much as a narcissist as Trump. They're the same, but they're on a different spectrum. They have a bit different of a narcissist vibe.
Fierce loyalty and became a focal point for both deep devotion and vehement opposition. Trump's political narrative mirrors the conditions Cayce associated with the rise of such a leader. Whether one views that resemblance as confirmation, coincidence, or selective reading, the pattern is clear. Cayce's portrait reads like a psychological and spiritual diagnosis of a populace susceptible to charismatic disruption. Even more telling in Cayce's account is the diagnostic test he proposed. The leader's true.
And let's be honest, this isn't a left or right thing. The liberals fell for Barack Obama, and he got a peace award as he was bombing Syria. These guys don't run it. That's the thing. These guys are just presented as fronts. They say the words, but they're not really running things. There are 13 crazy families that hold all the power, and the bankers all behind running the show. And I think that's the real beast system. That's the beast system. That is the Antichrist. These political leaders are just pushed up to the front. And then we perceive them as that, but it's like the real root of the problem is there's so many of us, it's easy to divide us because it's easy to get us to focus on our differences. And it's really easy to get us to be afraid of each other. And we do it all the time. It's a religion. I mean, you could go anywhere with this and look at all of the crazy stuff throughout history, whether it's Jesuits versus, Protestants, you can go into there and see how they brainwashed and tortured children to make them spies. No kidding. This stuff has been going on forever. This is the name of the game. You got to look at the behavior. They've been doing it. And now it's just in such a massive scale. And we have all this technology and power. It looks crazier than it's ever looked before. And then here we are on the ultimate control system, the internet, that was made by the CIA. And here we are all hooked on it, ready to control us, ready to spy on us. Not ready, they are spying on us. All right, let's pop this over. We got the sense and the idea, but apparently after all this, there is supposed to be No, I don't think I want that one. There is supposed to be a rise of a better leader, someone that replaces, that actually does what they say. Um, hmm. Oh, yeah. I have a thing on who he was channeling. And I was going to bring a book. One of the people watched the shows. I was going to bring a book on remote viewing, but I forgot it. So let's see. They're talking about the downfall. So let's check this one out.
But entrusted. The words mine and yours would give way to ours. The walls that once divided would become bridges. The air shall grow cleaner, the waters gentler, and the earth, long burdened by greed, will breathe again. Children would speak of unity not as a dream, but as a memory reborn. Cayce foresaw new lights appearing in the sky, not of war, but of wisdom. New energy shall flow from the hands of those who understand the harmony.
So this is like after the downfall. Like this leader falls and we have all these crazy predictions of natural disasters and catastrophes. And then this next leader is supposed to come.
Of matter and spirit. For science and faith, long estranged, shall meet again as brothers. The mender would guide this dawn not as a ruler, but as a vessel, knowing that her reign was never her own, but part of a higher will moving through her. Though her time shall pass, her legacy will not fade. She will plant within the hearts of her people a seed, the remembrance of what it means to care, and the courage to do so even when the world forgets. And from that seed, the nations of the world would look again toward the land once divided, and see a beacon rise, not of conquest, but of compassion.
It's interesting because this implies a feminine energy, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it will be a female or a male, but it's a leader who... I mean, if that leader's going to come, you couldn't have the banks. You couldn't have all these people that control things here. They would have to go. Like, they would all have to be taken out as well by this disaster. And it would have to be reduction. It is like a reset, but it's not their reset. It can't be their reset because they can't be around. And a lot, everything that we're doing right now came out of the creation of agriculture. Like I said, in that goddess religious structure that, we had the goddess, then we had polytheism, now we have monotheism. It's like, is this a cycle back to the goddess? Is this what the Age of Aquarius brings in? Like, or are we connected back to real psychic energy, connected to each other? Incognito says her. Well, it's not Kamala. She comes bearing Venn diagrams and copious bottles of wine. I hope to God it's not Kamala Harris. Well, she's part of the system. Just because she's a woman doesn't mean she's not corrupt and not part of a system. This has got to be a particularly special woman, and I think a lot of things have to happen first before she comes in, like a lot of chaos. Now, we don't know if Edgar Cayce was talking about Trump. We know he's talking about this leader. There could be someone worse after Trump. God help our souls. But if we don't get right with ourselves and get spiritually right and just start behaving properly, we're going to have more and more figures like this. It won't matter if it's left or right. We'll just keep voting and falling for more crap like this. It's about, it's symbiotic. We're connected to it. I know these psychopaths don't want to think about us being connected, but unfortunately we are. And so let's listen to the rest.
From chaos is born clarity, from division, understanding, and from the fall of the proud, the rise of the just. Cayce's vision reminds us that the spirit of mankind is eternal. The builder fell, the mender rose, and through them both the divine worked unseen, weaving the end and the beginning into one eternal thread. The age of renewal, he said, is not merely a time, but a turning. One that begins the moment a single heart chooses peace over pride. Every rise and every fall, every triumph and every tear were never about power alone, but about the evolution of the human soul.
And we have a lot of people who are about power. Go look at Nick Fuentes, who they're propping up. He's a total fed, by the way. Just think about it. He was at Charlottesville, so were the feds. He was ushering people in at J6, telling them to go in and ignore the cops, and he never went to jail or any repercussions where other people who did less went to prison. Total fed. He's just featured on Rolling Stones and New York Times positively. Well, they're an arm of the CIA. They're not going to just push anyone out there who, there's a lot of people, and he says it, they want people who win and people with power. And so that stuff is still playing out. And so I don't know, hopefully the age of Aquarius that's coming in, I don't think it's here yet. I think it's still playing in. So we may never see this stuff, and it may not be about Trump at all. Just saying. But, until people like that just start messing around, and we have to actually connect with each other and depend on each other in a smaller scale to survive and actually care about each other, this stuff can't happen. And it does start with us and not hating each other.
The builder taught us how high ambition can climb and how fragile pride can be. The mender reminds us that true strength lies not in dominion, but in restoration.
And I don't think it necessarily has to be a woman. It could be, but it could be that, because we all have masculine and feminine energies within us. It could just be this feminine energy that influences the leaders. So we'll see, because we've had some, when we do get good leaders, they tend to try to shoot them.
Together, their story.
Oh God, and don't tell me it's Erica Kirk. There's no way I'd be voting for her, because she's a fake and a fraud and a phony.
Stories form the two halves of the same eternal lesson, that destruction and creation, when joined by wisdom, give birth to renewal. Cayce's prophecy was never merely about governments or leaders. It was about awakening, a time when humanity would tire of its own division, when truth, compassion, and unity would cease to be distant ideals and instead become...
Yeah, I think we're getting division fatigue here. I think a lot of people are. It just has to keep coming out. And unfortunately, we have to stand steadfast with that and not be persuaded by a lot of these people. Unfortunately, like I told you, there's still many who are, and they don't want to think for themselves. They don't want to acknowledge that they are living and doing things that are not good. They want to put it all into the hands of one little iconic leader and give them all the power. And that's really dangerous. That's really, really, really dangerous. Let's continue.
Living forces moving through our everyday lives. He foresaw a moment when we would stand again at the crossroads, one path leading deeper into conflict and fear, the other toward understanding and rebirth. And that moment, he said, would not come in some far-off century. It would come in our time. And here we are, standing in that very moment, living in the echo of his vision.
Okay, so I don't know. Jonaside says it's Candace. Hey, I'd vote for her. If she sticks on this path and she's solid, I vote for her. But there is good people like Thomas Massey. There's Marjorie Taylor Greene, who actually stood up against Trump. So there are some people. It's just once you get up to that cesspool up on top, it's just so full of evil and corruption and money and power. You know, you either go along with it or they get rid of you. And it's a scary place. I mean, it's a scary place to be. I don't know how you could be spiritual hanging out there. I've no idea how you could be.
The question now is not whether the prophecy came true, but what part each of us will play in it. Will we rebuild the world as the Mender did, with empathy, humility, and courage? Or will we rebuild the same towers of pride, only to watch them fall once again? Cayce warned that the choice would not belong to kings or presidents. It would belong to each and every soul. For the age of renewal is not declared by decree. It begins in silence, in the moment one heart decides to love where hatred once lived. And that moment, Cayce said, is now. If this message resonated with you, help keep its light alive. Tap like before this video fades from your screen, share it with others who seek meaning in the chaos, and subscribe to continue exploring Cayce's lost prophecies and the spiritual currents shaping our time. Consider becoming a channel member to support the mission of revealing the connections that bind our world together.
Okay, so that's just, you can go and like that channel. It's called, let's put it in the channel. It's a really long link because it's a video, but it's called Stepic Vice Versa. Stepic Vice Versa. So I'll give you the link to the video. It's sorry, it's a really long link, but if you want to check it out and their other videos, go ahead. So that's it. That's like the realm. And you can go and look at Cayce, Edgar Cayce. There's books out on him where they talk about some of his other prophecies. There is a one called Edgar Cayce on Atlantis, Edgar Cayce, Astrology for the Soul. I'm going to give you a quick little description on what he believed. If I can find it. There was on what he was channeling. Just before we go, there's a lot of books on there about him, but it said Edgar Cayce channeled information from what he described as his subconscious mind, which he believed was connected to a universal consciousness or a superconsciousness realm, which, if you look at it, if that's true and that's what he's doing, he's got access to information that can see the big, massive picture, and they can tell you. They can give you that advice that says, hey, here's how it plays out. Here's the cycle. And here's the things you can do. Right now, there's still a lot of division. I think there's people who are like, who don't want to play. They're just getting disgusted of playing this game. Right? So it says he believed that this subconscious mind was connected to a universal consciousness, accessing all time and space to answer questions about healing, past lives, Atlantis, and future events. While he was a devout Christian and denied communicating with spirits, his trance-like readings provided deep insights on holistic health, reincarnation, and prophecies, making him a key figure in the New Age movement. And I don't want to get woo-woo. Like, there's some people with the New Age that are just right off the charts. I think you should still be logical in your approach. They're saying, he did universal consciousness, Akashic records, which are, he implied, I don't know if he used the right, his ability to recall past lives, historical details, suggests access to records that are like the Akashic records. So I don't think he uses the word, but his description actually matches other people's descriptions in what they call Akashic records. Holistic reincarnation, he was big into physical ailments, remedies, using diet, natural therapy, homeotherapy, and spiritual guidance. He believed in karma. He believed in soul growth. And Atlantis and Lemuria. I actually have a guest coming on next year about this. He was a Christian mystic. he said he was communicating with his subconscious, not spirits, which is interestingly important because a lot of times people who I think who are doing the spiritual stuff often get tapped into, or everyone's afraid of demons and all that stuff, but I don't know. I think if you're going for the subconscious and something like a record, that's a good thing. So, like I said again, you can find a lot of books on Edgar Cayce. Where was that? I had a list of them. But there was right. Edgar Cayce, Prophecies for 2025 and Beyond. You can get a book about that if you're, wanting to look at this in a deeper. You get one. He's got stuff about Beyond Bridge, Edgar Cayce collection, some of his readings. Like they've got an old collection of his readings, like for $850 on eBay. The astrology one's different. And a lot of people that are getting into the spiritual stuff, they really do believe that astrology is a really good key to your personality. So it might be something I delve into a little bit deeper too as we go on in the show, is looking at how you should look at your actual chart, where they chart something specific for you, and actually see how it shows your personality, and how something you might be able to understand why you do some things and not be so harsh on yourself and go, oh, crazy. Like there is like, obviously you have your sun sign, then you have your ascendant sign, and then you have your moon sign, then you have your Saturn's return. So when Saturn returns on certain, comes back a couple of times a year, then you have certain things in certain houses that will all depict your personality. Like my sun sign, my main sign is Aries, but my rising ascendant sign is also Aries. I got 2 Aries. It's like crazy warrior. And then I believe I have an Aquarius. And then that Saturn returns, it will tell you what age you will be. There's like different, like I think it's in like 30 years increments or 25-year increments when it comes back, and it influences major events in your life. Yeah. Oh, Jonaside, that's such good. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Jonaside says, glad we didn't go with the con artist that said he was Edgar's reincarnation, even if he would look cool with a mustache and be more believable too. David Wilcox. Oh yeah, he's a hustler. He's a hustler. I think Edgar was a lot very serious about being personally spiritual, and he wasn't a huckster trying to get you to spend this money. He wasn't grabbing onto silly stuff like QAnon, like keep dropping the money and I'll keep communicating with Q. Oh my God. And secret space program and all this stuff. That is just a grift right there. That's a crazy grift. But yeah, David Wilcox, the guy that used to be with him on one of his shows, Corey Good, he was taking, what's his name that ran Gaia? He was taking him to court, and I think he lost. He just was trying to do this, sue people to intimidate them crap, and it was just ridiculous. Some of this stuff in court gets ridiculous. It's one of the things about America that I think is funny is it's like we're going to sue the nation into bankruptcy. Like you can sue so much that I think your nation's going to collapse. I think this nation will collapse if people just keep suing each other to break them apart when they haven't really done a crime. It's crazy stuff. It's what I don't like about that kind of lawfare. It sort of corrupts justice, It's really crazy. And I mean, you guys might have watched that show. You guys know that I think that I'm pretty sure the Trump assassination stuff was staged. And I don't know, can they stage? Can they stage all those court cases against Trump? Could that be an act too? It's possible. Look, these guys, I just don't leave anything out of the possibility. I don't have proof of that. So I'll say alleged, but there's just so much that's like a Hollywood stage. And right now we're in the middle of a psyop with all this stuff with Turning Point USA. And of course, you guys know, I say don't wear their logos, don't give them money, and don't go to their massive events. Don't do it. I think Corey's broke. He says, careful or Corey will see you. I think he might be broke. I think he might be hurting. I mean, I'll say allegedly, Corey. Good luck to you. I hope the best, but you don't own the term secret space program. And for you, those don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, he's there's a lot of narcissists. We've become a nation that's ripping apart, and we've got a lot of narcissists and a lot of chaos going on, and a lot of people who get to the top who don't deserve to be there, but they're attracted to that because they're psychopaths and narcissists, and their families control it all. Like these generations of families inbreeding and putting their kids in position that they just get it, not because they do good or care about the people, but because they'll protect the gates of power and money and control. And that's the state we live in. And we kind of need to take it upon ourselves, I guess, in our own vibration and our own spirituality to get out of that, because it's so crazy what's going on. And the fact that the algorithm pushes all these insane people and not something like my show is so insane. It's a reality show for aliens, and like all good reality shows, it's all fake. Like I'm being authentic here. No, I don't get pushed on the algorithm. Nobody cares about me being authentic. I don't even have words for the insanity. All right, so that's what I got for you today about Edgar Cayce. So you can go check out his books. There's tons of stuff about him on TikTok, on YouTube. And see what you think. And I don't know, maybe you can practice channeling to the Akashic records and see, show up in the comments. And if you guys do that Akashic record stuff, let me know what you see there. And I've tried to do that stuff before. I used to do a thing called Psych. It's PSYCH-K, where you tap into things, and I've kind of gotten back into a bit, and you can clear out some belief systems and some trauma stuff for yourself. I want to actually check out that mace energy healing thing and get into that too. And I don't know, see if I can start doing stuff more towards this sort of energy thing as my contribution to clearing up this shithole, for lack of a better word. But guys, I want to thank you for showing up on the show. We're going to tie this up today. Of course, you can go over to the website, melissadonharris.com, and all the links are there to the Patreon, to the Substack, where you can subscribe and support the show. And the best thing you can do right now is keep watching the YouTube channel, Order of Velvet Bite, and keep the hours going, because pretty soon it will monetize. And people can send super chats and stickers, and then I can do actually exclusive content for people on YouTube and keep growing it. It would be fantastic. So we'll be here tomorrow, Vampires, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then we'll do a Sunday show at 1 p.m. Not 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. my time. All right, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm going to tune out here and let these doggos go out to the bathroom, and I will see you later.